another week of FPP. We are so excited to have Chris Hines here with us from BDO. So we're going to start off by just handing it over to him and kind of letting him talk about himself, his firm, kind of how he got to where he is, and what it really means to be a middle market firm serving middle market clients, which is the topic of this week's FPP. So I'll let you go ahead.
Great. Thanks, Haley. And thanks again, Claire, for inviting me to join in on this and kind of talk through some of the items. A quick intro, my name is Chris Hines. I'm a senior manager in our core tax practice. I've been with BDO for about 6 years in the Atlanta office. And then before that, I was with E&Y in the Atlanta office and their tax practice as well. So I was there for about 6 years, I think. So a little bit about BDO. We're a global audit tax advisory firm. I think we're in about 150 countries across the globe. In the US, I believe we have 60 to 65 office locations. So we serve, getting to Hallie's point on the sort of, what is kind of that middle market view. So, I would say that most of the clients we serve are kind of in that middle market sweet spot. When you go and try to look at the definition, I think the latest, one of the ones I saw was maybe like 10 million to $1 billion in revenues. What I've noticed, and especially sort of seeing it from going just, to a big four firm right out of college, was there's a lot of differences, but there's a lot of stuff that's kind of the same. So we can definitely touch on it. But, typically in that middle market, you're going to have some publicly traded companies. You're going to have some privately owned companies. You're going to have some family owned businesses that are very close held. So it can definitely be across the map. And I guess to say, back to the initial question of just, what do I see it as sort of serving the middle market clients? Typically when you get brought in, we may be brought in either to be an advisor on the tax side, to help, the company is either a startup, they've been around for a few years, they're rapidly growing, they're looking to potentially enter the public market through an IPO. Some of the things I've seen is that you may be brought in to be doing one type of role, whether it be the assurance or the audit function, you're a tax advisor. That could quickly change just because some of these companies don't necessarily have the infrastructure that, say, a 100-year-old, 200-year-old Fortune 50 company may have. Another thing I've noticed, especially over the past couple of years, is with all these tax changes and just law changes in general, stimulus packages, all this. It's a lot to get. I know we are always trying to navigate it. I've got colleagues that are at other firms, and it's a lot. You take that to a company that's just starting out, it's a whole lot. So I would say that. It's, that scope may kind of increase a little bit.
So since you have said you had previous experience with a big four firm, could you talk about the differences between your middle market firm at BDO versus a big four firm when it relates to client types, deadlines, technology, and resources?
I would say first off, definitely size. You think about it, the size of companies that are typically being served. I know coming into, the first firm was, it's the 10 largest companies in Atlanta that also happen to be the largest companies like in the world or in the US. And so that, that's definitely there. Their balance sheet, their income statements are larger. I think the size, their locations are larger. They may have more employees. It may take just because of the number, depending if you're working through the audit, it may just be more is a sense of, hey, we've got bigger numbers to look at. We need more to dig into. They're in 100 different countries, so we need bigger teams across the globe. So I would say that is probably the first thing. From a technology standpoint, definitely, I'm trying to think of the best way to say it. I think the big four firms are definitely on the cutting edge, just as far as really being first to market with a lot of these new new ideas. But at the same time, you know, because of what we were saying before, is just it's a small world. A lot of us professionals kind of engage with each other. There's a lot of smart people out there. So that may be one of those that's same slash different. You know, quickly to touch on it, deadlines, you know, I guess that really just depends on, you know, if it's a tax return, the IRS is pretty indiscriminate. You know, they're going to want everybody's tax return at the same time. But I do remember being on some of the projects where you'd have you know, a company that's so large that you may need to start your return in April to get it filed by October. You know, that would definitely be different if you've got a smaller startup company that has, you know, one or two you know, entities in it. So, you know, definitely with, you know, having more people, I mean, I think, you know, we can talk on that further down on one of the next points, but, you know, it's that could be a deciding factor just from a sense of what, you know, do I want to be in an office with 400 people, or do I want to be in an office where I just, you know, that's not really what I'm used to. So I want something where it's a little bit closer knit.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that was a great description for some of our people, you know, just going through recruiting right now that might not even know some of the differences.
Yeah.
So our next question is going to kind of hit on what are some specific benefits or perks and things that you liked that either drew you away from Big Four to BDO, or that you've experienced, you know, since your transition that you really enjoy about BDO as opposed to your Big Four experience.
A sense from there coming over, sort of the conceptions I had always heard, and I wouldn't say bad, was just that, oh no, I'm going to a smaller firm, so you know, I'm not going to get to see the same experiences. And you know, that one was quickly, I'd say, dispelled, because you know, when I came over and joined, one of the first companies I got to work with was a company based out of Atlanta that had operations in 40 different countries. And we, you know, had our office, you know, our BDO office in Australia and in Peru and in Toronto and Chile, that they, you know, said, all right, Chris, go, you know, you coordinate, make sure everybody's doing this stuff. So, you know, it quickly turned from, yeah, you know, you're definitely doing the global cross-border stuff at the big firm, but there is plenty of that, you know, when coming over. So you definitely get to try to figure out time zone differences and, you know, where a country is. So it's perfect. I'd say, you know, really quickly to get through this one. When I was at EY, I saw a lot of really big corporate calendar year public companies, which was awesome. I mean, there was, within all of it, I mean, you're seeing transactions, you're seeing global stuff. I mean, it was cool experiences. When I, you know, made the transition over, I started seeing a lot of privately held companies that were owned by a husband and wife, owned by a family. They had no idea what accounting was, and they were just, you know, going to write off all of their expenses were write-offs. And so you know, you get to see some of the fun stuff that it just comes with not being a large corporate public company. Within that middle market space, you've got a lot of new startup companies that are either owned by a hedge fund or private equity fund, that are making their way to then go trade on a public market.
Yeah, that's really cool. I didn't know those differences, so that was pretty cool to hear that.
Yeah.
We'll just transition to the next question, the wrap-up question. What would your advice be to a student going through recruiting to help them find a firm that best fits their career path?
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's a great question, Claire. You know, I would say, and I think this is probably the challenge that you hear from just other students on campus is, you know, how everything is virtual. It's not, the career fairs aren't like they were a year ago, 2 years ago, where, you know, you could bounce through it and run by all the different tables and kind of talk to a few people at a time. So I think, you know, now is sort of like challenging ourselves to really go out and, and talk to some other firms that are outside the ones that we know, or, just immediately the ones that maybe the group, if you got a group of classmates that everybody's talking to that firm, challenging yourself to kind of branch out to go, find some other ones. Because that's when I started seeing what I say wouldn't, it kind of aided my transition to BDO. Was I just, I wanted a little bit smaller of a culture. That definition I feel like is kind of person to person, what that means. But yeah, location, where do you think you want to be? And I think it's beneficial if you're looking, if you don't know the answer to that question, if you're looking at a national firm, it's always easy if you start in one office, you may be able to, well, I know that somebody has an office in, I don't know, California, you may be able to make that transition. So, I'd say long-term career path. I mean, that one's always a tough one, but do you see yourself being able and wanting to stay in public accounting for the long term? And then, finally, I guess that, don't be afraid to kind of go the different road and
Awesome. Great advice. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think Auburn students are so lucky because we get exposure to so many firms, through Beta Alpha Psi and so many different professional partners. So they get the opportunity to kind of explore those things early, maybe before you even make your career decision, which is awesome. Claire can attest to that at the moment in the midst of her recruiting journey.
That's right. Yeah. Well, good luck, Claire. That's right.
Thank you. I'm going to need it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
Taking time out of your day. I'm sure you're busy, but we really appreciate it. And I know our students are really going to look forward to hearing this.
Likewise. Well, thanks again. Have a great afternoon. Thanks, Claire.
Awesome.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Take care.